What's going on, everybody? My name is AJ Eckstein, and I'm the founder and host of The Final Round. It's a career platform where I get the privilege to interview recruiters from top companies to help job seekers advance past the final round interview. And I've also interviewed recruiters from top companies like Snap. I think Natalie's in the crowd, Netflix, Spotify, Google, and more. I also am a professional career coach for UCLA, which is ironic since I went to a rival school across the hill. Fight on to any Trojans in the crowd. You fight on. Everything that I do revolves around work-life content. I write for Business Insider, I write for Fast Company, and I focus on Gen Z, future of work, and AI in my career. And the last thing is I'm one of the youngest LinkedIn Learning instructors on the platform, and I'm one of the LinkedIn Learning top voices. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for having us on this panel.
Thank you for being here, AJ. And so the first question that I have for each of you is, do you want to work? Right? That's sort of the elephant in the room. That's the question.
And I think to close out this question, so I go back to my time in college, and I think we're so taught, especially from older people, that you need to find that dream job. I think we all can agree that finding a job is a full-time job in itself, right? It's tough. But I think, and again, kind of what DeAndre said, instead of striving for that dream job, we should strive for that dream life. And work is just a part of how to get there. So I think, does Gen Z want to work? I think everybody needs to work, right? I got expenses. I think all of us have expenses we got to pay. I don't think it has to be either just two routes. Either you work for yourself or you work for someone else. There is a hybrid between the two, like DeAndre said. I think a lot of people work a 9 to 5 and have a podcast on the side. A lot of people have a YouTube channel. Maybe your boss tomorrow is going to have a Snap Spotlight show. You don't know, right? But I think that we do want to work, and I think that we need to strive for that dream life. And I think that nobody wants to be underpaid, no one wants to be underappreciated, and no one wants to be undervalued. So that's why I think Gen Z doesn't want to work and gets that bad rap.
What does the dream workplace look like? What are we actually asking for materially that folks can take away from this room and bring back to their organizations that will materially make their Gen Z employees feel more valued, feel all the things that we agree that humans deserve to feel, but how do you operationalize that within the confines of pre-existing organizations that are limited in their bandwidth and are limited in their agency to be able to realize all of the radical reimaginations of work that we might be pushing for?
And I think it was interesting, Ziad, that you said that what if the company doesn't have money, doesn't have budget, doesn't have the time or resources? And I think a lot of things that Gen Z is asking for are the intangible things. We're not asking for materialistic things. We don't care about the ping pong tables anymore. We don't care about the pizza parties in the office, right? We care about how our manager treats us, what the culture is like at the company. If anybody here works a corporate job or really for anybody else and someone quits, they never say, I quit this company. They say, I quit this manager, right? So it's all about, can you train your employees, especially your leadership, to be good managers and to really help, especially the new workforce, enter into these companies. And a crazy stat that I read is that in 2 years, 30% of the workforce will be comprised of Gen Z, 30%, right? So I think the companies that win tomorrow in the future of work are the ones that understand how to recruit and how to retain Gen Z. But how do you really go about that, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is that you need to practice what you preach. I think all of us in the room can agree that Gen Z is as authentic of a generation, unprecedented, right? But at the same time, we can sniff out inauthenticity. So if you're an employer, you're a company, and you say we value work-life balance, but you are emailing your employees on a Sunday, and you're saying, hey, take that PTO, but when you ask your manager, could I take a week to go to Hawaii? They say, no, it's too busy, right? So you need to practice what you preach. I think a second thing is you need to communicate effectively. I started my full-time job virtually. I never knew what it was like to work in person. Everybody says you learn on the job. Try learning via Zoom. There's no hallway conversations, right? It's really challenging. At the same time, it's challenging to manage Gen Z, but we're trying to work together, right? So I think we need to understand how to communicate effectively, and don't be afraid to teach Gen Z how to communicate at work, right? We talk about work etiquette, and for older generations, it might be pretty obvious how to dress appropriately, how to talk to a manager, how to talk to a coworker, but we don't know. This is new for us, especially on Slack, on Zoom. And the last thing, and people always say that first impressions matter, right? And companies focus so much on recruiting Gen Z, or even just talent in general, but I think onboarding often gets overlooked. And your true first step into the company is those first 7 days, those first 90 days. And you can't overlook onboarding. So encourage people to set up coffee chats with other people in the company. Can you find that person a mentor from the same school that they went to? Ensure that you're there, that you'll show up, and that talent will be able to bring their authentic self to work.
But the question becomes, okay, then how can the managers in the room become the people that people want to learn from? What are we as a generation looking to learn, and what does that look like? Can we walk through that maybe?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I want to learn working for somebody else, and this might be kind of a hot take, is how to lead. I think working for other people, you learn what to do and what not to do. I think I've learned more about some of the managers that I've had over the years, and they were terrible managers. And I know that if I'm ever a manager and I strive to be a manager in the future, I know that how this manager made me feel, and that maybe I was ready to leave this one company, but this other manager stuck their neck out for you, right? And they were loyal to you, and they would do anything they can to mentor you and chat outside of work. And that made me want to stay. That made me want to grow in the company. And I know that as a manager in the future, I'm going to do all those things that made me feel like I was valued, like I had impact, like I was at a mission-driven company versus the other managers that micromanaged, that made me want to leave the second it hit 5 p.m., right? So I think that's one of the biggest things when you work for other people is you learn the good and the bad, and that's probably one of the biggest things. But I also think just Gen Z overall just gets misunderstood. I think we are really good at social media, right? We grew up probably with more technology than any other generation, but there are so many other things we want to learn. And I always hate when one generation points fingers at the younger generation versus the older generation. And I've seen some videos where it says that Gen Z doesn't know how to fill out an envelope, right? And to me personally, I still need to write that down, right? But it goes two ways, right? They don't know how to write an email. They don't know how to create a social media post. So I think overall, holistically, every generation has their strengths and weaknesses, and we need to work together to play to those strengths so that we can thrive in the future of work.
Absolutely.